Welcome to episode 5 of our Angular journey. Today we will create our first Angular component, understand the component structure, and learn how Angular dynamically displays content on your browser. This is where development gets hands on. Let's dive in. What is an Angular component? Angular applications are built using components. A component is the basic building block of the UI, means it controls a section of the screen with HTML template, CSS, and TypeScript file. As you know, HTML template is nothing but the view, and CSS the styling, and TypeScript file is the logic goes there. Let's explain it. In the last video, we explained how Angular application bootstraps. We have an index HTML file with the plain HTML. You can see the basic HTML tags here with the head and body. So body can see app root. We have a lot of HTML elements, but we don't have any app root element till now. Let's open main.ts now. So main.ts is where the Angular application bootstraps. You can see here a bootstrap application function, and we are passing two parameters here. One is the class and one is the config. So this is optional. Now focus on our component. So the component we are passing from app slash app.ts file. So where we have a class called app. This is the one we are bootstrapping initially. So let's go into app now. So if you go to app.ts, you can see app root. Selector is app root, and the class name is app, and we have a title here. Let's remove this one now. We have a plain class without any contents. I'm just saving it. Now we have app root selector, and we have a template URL and style URL. This is the basic structure of component. This is the class, and this is the decorator. Angular heavily relies on the decorator pattern, especially for the things like components, directive, pipes, and services. A decorator is a special function in TypeScript that adds metadata to the class or class members. In Angular, decorator tells the framework how to process the class. Here at component is a decorator, and it adds metadata that Angular uses to understand. So this is the metadata. We are saying Angular that this is the component, and we need to use this metadata, okay, for this class. So here you can see template URL, which is this is the URL, and style URL is this one, okay, and which selector Angular need to watch for. So we need to watch for app root, okay. So whenever we pass this to bootstrap application, so it will check where the app root is present. So it is present inside index.html file, and it will add this HTML contents. So if you go to browser, if you are inspecting this, you can see app root and the contents added. See, like the h1 contents added, they were also added, okay. This is how the Angular application works. We also seen script tags here, okay. So if you go to this one, index.html, you will not see any script tag. So this is what Angular do. Angular adds Angular application compiles, and it adds. So you can see here it compiles your application, and it creates these files, and it dynamically inject to index.html, okay. So you can see these files are generated, and these are the files added in the index.html file. This is done by Angular. We understood what is the component structure. So let's create one new component now. So I'm creating a new folder, header. So I'm adding a new file header.ts. Okay, so this is a TypeScript file. I added it. Before adding any contents here, let's add two extensions which help for Angular development in the Visual Studio. Okay, so let's go to extensions. So one is Angular language service. So this one you can add. So I already installed it. Okay, and one more thing is Angular essentials. This also you can add. So this will help for coding. Okay, so once you install, come back to our header ts file. Okay, now we need to create a class here. Export class header. So the class name first letter should be caps. This is the naming convention we use. Okay, I'm keeping it as plain. I'm not adding any contents to it. Now we need to tell the Angular that we are using this class for component. Okay, so we need to use certain decorator. What is the decorator? Is component decorator. This is imported from Angular core, so I'm just clicking on it. Now we need to pass metadata, how to process this component. So we need to pass three things here. One is selector. Which selector we need to use? I'll just give app header. Okay, and next one is template. Component should be having selector and template at least. Okay, so template I'm giving as, you can mention template URL, and you can mention if you are creating any HTML here. I'm just using template because in app.ts you have seen template URL because we already have an HTML here, so we are using it. And style URL also because we already have style CSS, so we are using it. In this component we are not going to create any style or template URL. Okay, so I'm just adding contents div header. Okay, so this is the template. Okay, so at least this should be having these two, and styles also maybe we can add styles. Okay, so this should be an array, so we'll add the contents later. Okay, and how the am.ts worked is, in index.html we added this, and main.ts file we bootstrap application, we use this, and same thing we are going to do here as well. So our selector header selector is app header, app header. Okay, I'm saving it. Main.ts, we are bootstrapping that application. We are bootstrapping header. So address imported from this file structure app header header.ts, and bootstrap application header. Okay, now I'm saving it. Now if you go to you can see this one. Now we can see app header also added. This is the thing, but this is not how the Angular application looks like, because we should be having one app root. Okay, so we can see this is one root and this is another root, because you can see ng version also added here. This is not how the Angular application designed to run. We should be having only one root. So let's remove data from it. Okay, so let's remove this header from here. Okay, let's keep only one root element, and we don't want any further bootstrapping application function call. So here we have only one root now. So in HTML, let's use this one. Okay, so this will throw some certain error. So this is saying app header is not a known element. So this is what Angular IntelliSense will do. So we install two application, right? So whenever we develop something, we it is not properly used in your application, you will get errors like this. Before, like if you are building also, you'll get the same kind of error. But this is useful when you're developing application. So Angular is not a non-element. App address and Angular component, then verify that is included in the component imports. And app address web component, then add custom element schema to the component schemas of the components to surface this message. Okay, so we'll use quick fix here. So import header from. So now we imported this header. So if you see app.ts, it is imported this header. Here we are importing the new header class, and we are using that header selector inside app app.html. Okay, so let's see how it works. I'm saving it now. So it compiled. Let's see how it works. So you'll be having one root element, and yeah, you can see app header here, and the contents is added here. Template, whatever we kept, right, that is added under that. This is how Angular application works. Now let's go back to header.ts file. Now we added template directly here. So if you want to create HTML file, then template URL we can mention here, and that URL as we mentioned here in app.ts file. Here we created app HTML, we mentioned here template URL, same way style URL as well. This is a little headache for developer, right? Because we need to add these files, then we need to use this decorator, we need to import these things, we need to add separate class, etc. So this is time consuming process, and we are human beings, so we may make mistakes. CLI providing one more command to create Angular component. So let's use that one. ng generate component, and the new component is footer. You can use generate or G, or component or C. Now you can see the footer is created with those files HTML, CSS, and spec.ts files for testing purpose. So we'll delete it now. So we'll use it later. Okay. So and footer ts file, these three files plus one spec file which I deleted. Okay, four files will be created, and you can see here footer class also will be created, and decorator with certain metadata. Okay, this is how the component we need to create using Angular. So you can use generate or G, component or C, ng gc footer, like that we can use. When you run ng-serve, here is what happens under the hood. So Angular CLI compiles your TypeScript into JavaScript. If you see this, command prompt, so it is compiled TypeScript into JavaScript. So you can see main.js, style CSS, and polyfill.js. Then we have index.html file. Everything will be injected inside index.html file. You can see here these scripts are injected inside HTML file. If you go to head, CSS also will be injected. Style CSS. Also discuss few of the metadata we can have for component decorator. Here selector we already know why we are using, because it's a custom HTML tag for the component. Imports is if your Angular class is using any Angular component, you need to import here. Template URL is nothing but the HTML file path, and Instead of template URL, we can also mention template. Style URL, we can have style class path, and style URLs also we can mention. We can have multiple style class. Also style also we can mention within an array. So let's quickly add few styles for this div. So class class let's add header. Okay, so if you're a controls, so you can either use single colon, sorry, you can use single quotes because you are already using double quotes here. Otherwise you can use backticks as well. So I'm using backticks here. Dot header, and we are using some color red. Okay, this is compiled. So now you can see this is showing in red. Now we will check standalone. Standalone is one property. By default it will be true in Angular 20, and if we can make false as well. So what it means is after Angular 14 it makes component self-contained without ng module. Before we had folder structure like there will be a module, then component, HTML, CSS and spec.tsy. Standalone false means with ng module. So standalone true means without ng module. So standalone true is by default now. So if it is false without ng module means imports will go and sit inside ng module. Okay, we cannot use inside component decorator with the standalone false. If you have any special style for this class, you can use animations. For this component, while opening you need to add any styles or anything, then you can mention animation. We have providers array here. Providers means registering service specifically for this component. So we'll be using services later, so we'll explain it clearly later. And we also have change detection. So we have two types of change detection strategy. One is on push, and one by default it will be default. Okay, this also will be explaining it clearly in the next videos. We also have animations. If you want to use any styles for this particular component, you can use animations. We also have encapsulation defines how styles are scoped. We'll be having three types of options here: emulated, none and shadow DOM. In this episode, you have learned what a component is, and we created a new Angular component. We also understood how Angular displays it in the browser, and we got a glimpse of Angular compilation and rendering process. In episode 6, we'll add interactivity by using data binding and event binding in Angular. Thanks for watching CodePixel. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. See you in the next video. Till then, this is Nidhin signing off.